Thanks for tuning in to leftcoastnews.net, news and information from the wacky, sometimes communist, liberal West Coast of the United States. For more, visit leftcoastnews.net.
Governor Ferguson signs the overhaul of the Parental Bill of Rights, originally a citizen-passed initiative, Initiative 2081, signed by more than 448,000 people, and commonly referred to as the Parents' Bill of Rights, was adopted as written by the Washington legislature in 2024 and laid out 15 rights for parents and guardians of public school students. Defines public school records to include medical, mental health, counseling, attendance, disciplinary, job counseling, learning challenges testing, and any other student-specific files, documents, or other materials that are maintained by the public school. Parents receive prior notice of all medical treatment unless in an emergency situation, and must be alerted if the school arranges for outside follow-up care. Parents can opt out of any survey assignment asking about a student's sexual experiences, comprehensive sex education, or religious beliefs. In the spring of 2024, a group of plaintiffs filed a lawsuit in King County Superior Court, Legal Counsel for Youth and Children. State of Washington, seeking to enjoin I-2081 before it became effective. On June 21, 2024, Judge Michael Scott issued a preliminary injunction requiring that certain provisions of I-2081 be placed on hold while the litigation progressed through the legal process. The portions that were placed on hold at that time were subsection's requirement that parents receive a copy of their child's records within 10 business days of submitting a written request, either electronically or on paper. Those portions of I-2081 that require the disclosure of medical, health, and mental health records and or information protected by RCW 70, 022-020. OSPI complied with the judge's order and continued implementation efforts on provisions not covered by the injunction. On January 27, 2025, Judge Scott signed an order granting summary judgment to the defendants. Judge Scott's ruling dismissed the lawsuit and stated that Initiative 2081, codified in RCW 28A 605005, does not violate the Washington State Constitution. This order means that all sections of I-2081 are now in effect. In the meantime, OSPI will continue to monitor this case as well as potential actions by the legislature. The Parental Bill of Rights Overhaul, one of the most divisive bills approved during this year's Washington State legislative session, was signed by Gov. Bob Ferguson on Tuesday. The legislation stems from Initiative 2081, a citizen initiative lawmakers approved last year that granted certain rights to the parents of public school students under age 18. It allowed parents to easily access school materials, their child's medical records, and promised immediate notification if a child is involved in a crime. Democrats said they would write a cleanup bill if the initiative clashed with other state and federal laws. But Republicans said the law signed Monday goes much further and undermines the initiative, which hundreds of thousands of voters signed on in support of in 2023. The law contains an emergency clause. This will allow it to take effect immediately, and it eliminates the possibility of a referendum that would give voters a chance to weigh in on the law. Democratic lawmakers have said the emergency clause would help provide schools more clarity right away. Republicans criticize it as a ploy to block any referendum effort. Meanwhile, some opponents are already saying they will seek alternative paths to a repeal. Along with parental rights, students' rights are included, such as the right to receive an education in a safe and supportive learning environment, free of harassment and bullying. The law also makes clear that students are free to exercise constitutionally protected rights at school. Rep. Monica Stonia, D. Vancouver, the lead sponsor of House Bill 1296, said students deserve to have a diverse curriculum that reflects the true history and experiences of people, to be able to experience a school system without discrimination, and that student rights can coexist with parental rights. Ferguson echoed that view during the bill signing. The top priority for our schools must be to ensure a safe learning environment where every student has a chance to thrive, he said. Parts of the earlier Parents' Rights Initiative, such as allowing parents to review school curriculum and textbooks, and requiring school districts to immediately notify parents if a student is a victim of abuse, sexual misconduct, or assault, were kept in the rewrite. A significant change from the initiative was the removal of access to medical records. Democrats have said separating educational and medical records was necessary to prevent confusion. For example, a 1985 law gives children 13 years or older the right to mental health treatment without parental consent. Republican critics of the new legislation argue that the definition of mental health care has expanded over the past 40 years to include gender-affirming care, psychiatric medications, and other health services that parents should know about. The new bill essentially replaces the term public school records. Educational records, which are defined as records directly related to a student that are maintained by a public school. Specifies healthcare records are not included. Swaps public school records for education records and removes medical and mental health records from the original definition. Meaning if the school pushes your child to get gender-affirming care, they don't have to tell you and you have no access to that information. They say, parents' access to medical records is in accordance with other state laws. The new bill also removes the requirement for schools to provide notification about medical services and treatment, as established in Initiative 2081. They say parental consent for medical procedures for minors is already dictated by state and federal law. The age of consent in WA is typically 18, with exceptions including STDs, mental health, and reproductive health, which means gender-affirming care is an exception. The new bill also adds that parents can also opt out if content asks about mental health problems, illegal and self-incriminating behavior, or income. Not any sexual stuff, though. You are the parent, the guardian, not the school or the state. Notice how they are trying to drive a wedge between parents and their children, trying to take or remove control from you as a parent. Your ability to make decisions about what you feel is best for your child, because they know better than you what kind of filth your children should be exposed to. New parental rights would also be added, including ones for parents to be notified of their child's unexcused absences, and to engage in efforts to reduce those absences, and to request information about special education programs and determine eligibility. Throughout the session, debates related to the legislation flared over gender inclusivity and diversity, equity, and inclusion. Republicans introduced several unsuccessful amendments to prevent transgender girls from participating in girls' sports and entering girls' locker rooms. The law also adds ethnicity, homelessness, immigration, or citizenship status, and neurodivergence as protected classes, and clarifies protections for sexual orientation, gender expression, and gender identity. A new complaint process is established as well. This directs the Office of Superintendent of Public Instruction to investigate complaints if schools fail to comply with state laws in areas like civil rights, non-discrimination, harassment, and the physical restraint or isolation of students. In cases where districts are found to be willfully disobeying state law, they could see 20% of their state funds withheld and redirected to resolving the issues identified by the state. This option is intended as a last resort. Even so, Republicans view it as too punitive and claim it takes away local control. Let's Go Washington, the group behind Initiative 2081, plans to mount a repeal effort against the new law, according to Hallie Balch, a spokesperson for the group. Balch did not specify whether this might involve a ballot initiative or a new initiative to the legislature. Unlike a referendum, both of those options would be open to the group, but they would require the collection of nearly 400,000 signatures. The deadline to file initiatives, including required signatures, for the 2025 general election ballot is July 3rd. Initiatives to the legislature for next year's session can be filed until Jan 2nd, 2026. Why are these disgusting Democrats so focused on sexualizing your kids? Why are they pushing gender dysphoria? confusing kids who aren't old enough to do anything else, but they can go ahead and decide to make changes to their bodies that can't be reversed. Truly vile. They're also out of line with federal law that Trump administration has established. If this bill doesn't make you believe we live in a totalitarian state, I don't know what will. Truly 1984 stuff right here.
Thanks for listening to Left Coast News. For more, visit leftcoastnews.net. Please subscribe, like, and share to your social media. We appreciate your support.